I've been going through this little internal renegotiation, if you will, and I wanted to include you all in this moment with me because it very much is the next stage in my progression after my lifestyle shift and my political awakening and my career reckoning. But now that I've hit reset on my identity, I'm starting to realize I kind of need to reform what my goals even are for myself, what ambition means to me. After 25 years of just being flooded by advertisements telling me what I should want and rankings telling me who I should be, a million different ways of life on social media infiltrating my point of view, and all of the projection you just naturally get from your friends and family. With all of that combined, I'm finding myself wondering, like, how do I really distinguish what's authentic to me and my vision for my life versus what has been fabricated, manufactured? So that's what I want to get into today. Alright, so before we step into the rest of the video on what success means, I wanted to introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, who is funding all of the labor I put into this, and that is Grammarly. Grammarly currently helps over 30 million people feel just more successful in their writing by allowing you to communicate more clearly without all of the overthinking through their AI-powered digital writing assistant. You may be familiar. It sits in your browser extension or in your desktop apps or your mobile keyboard, and it just works online wherever you do to analyze and give you suggestions as you write, whether that's grammar or formality, vocabulary, tone, spelling, they do it all. The writing assistant also caters to the goals you set for yourself, so you can let it know what audience you're trying to cater your writing to, the level of polish you may want on your writing. It's not one size fits all, which is really nice. There are a bunch of different plans to choose from. Their free version has the basic grammar and spelling suggestions, but you can also upgrade to Grammarly Premium, which will save you so much more time and help you feel so much more confident that your writing is fully compelling. Personally, I feel like Grammarly Premium has been just so easy to integrate into my life. I just don't have to spend as much brain power when I'm writing an email to make sure that the formatting makes sense, and when I'm drafting videos, I don't even have to leave Google Docs as I'm writing to go find the word I'm trying to use or to find a synonym for something. You can also save a lot of time on your work with Grammarly. If you go to grammarly.com/Katherout to sign up for a free account, you'll also have access to 20% off Grammarly Premium to help you save time and just work more efficiently, more effectively, more successfully. When I think about what she would have wanted for my life, it looks a little different. My teenage dreams were like pretty narrow. It's not that they weren't big, they just felt very prescriptive. I very much wanted a 4.0. I wanted to get into a top-ranked college. I wanted a boyfriend. I wanted boobs. I wasn't reaching very far out of the pre-established norms for a 14-year-old girl. And then almost a decade later, after I graduated college, my ambitions still didn't dig very deep. An elite job, a nice apartment, a friend group that looked like, I don't know, the bold type or happy endings. I almost just said girls, but I know that's not a friend group anyone should be emulating. I wanted to be engaged at 27 and have my first kid at 30. But were those goals really true to who I was in that moment? Or were those just things that I knew were desirable? And even now, as I try to depart from some of my more cookie cutter definitions of success, I see why it's just easier to follow the formula than go rogue and establish your own guiding trajectory for what you want out of your life. But then I had to ask myself, like, how do these textbook definitions of success even form in the first place? And because no thought I've ever had is ever original, of course, these aren't just my own uninformed philosophical musings, but the actual philosophical musings of an actual philosopher, a very brilliant one at that, who goes by the name C.T. Nguyen. And a lot of his work is on something called value capture, which is a term I stumbled upon last week and then immediately was fascinated by and absolutely needed to learn more about, so I did. And it's been incredibly helpful to me as a tool to explain how the world works, basically. So value capture conceptually describes how our dreams are externally structured without our best interests even at heart. I promise this will only be a light red pilling, but my eyes did feel a lot more open after plunging into this topic. To directly quote the invaluable words of C.T. Nguyen, rather than my own butchered adaptation of it, value capture is when institutions, bureaucracies, and technologies present us with simplified versions of our values. And those simplified versions take over in our motivation. Examples of this look like Fitbit step counts or Twitter likes, retweets. Functionally, how does value capture actually work in these examples? You might start exercising for your overall health, your overall well-being, but when Fitbit and your Apple Watch are capturing very, very essentialized values, suddenly you find yourself just trying to maximize your step count every week. Or on Twitter, you might join for the sake of communication, some good discourse, like vulnerability, truth, but you end up just trying to optimize for virality and what's gonna get the most hits, the most likes, the most retweets, which is a very different goal than the rich, the nuanced aims of understanding, truth, community. It skews things ever so slightly, ever so insidiously. This is a JSTOR abstract, so it gets a little dense. Density usually isn't appreciated on YouTube, so stay with me. We'll work through it. But next he says, in value capture, we outsource the process of value deliberation. Basically, we stop letting our own personal lived experience guide what we're pushing for or striving for, but rather we substitute rigid and prefabricated values, usually engineered for the interests of some external force, some elite external force. So instead of contextual goals relevant to us, we just adopt these stiff, predetermined, non-personalized goals that may or may not make sense for us. He very astutely makes the comment that our values should be carefully tailored to our particular selves, but in value capture, we buy our values off the rack. In other words, our dreams are sold to us. Lastly, and very darkly, this is the threat of just blindly buying the dream that's sold to you, is that value capture's outsourcing of our values typically leads to narrowly explicated articulations of value, like typical institutional metrics. Don't worry, we're gonna get into a lot of relevant examples of this in today's society very soon. Any agent, person, who internalizes such narrowed values will thereby narrow the scope of their attentions and considerations. That makes sense. Suddenly, if your goal is this instead of that, you're paying attention to something that may not be in your best interest. The agent can then cut themselves off from the experiences that might help their values continue to evolve. This is value collapse. What a sentence. Thinking about the dangers of value collapse will show us something important about what it means to be a free and autonomous being, a goal I would hope many of us would have, liberation, or a full participation in forming the terms of our life's worth. And it really shows us what we lose when we just pocket these store-bought values for ourselves and our lives. If you are as intrigued by this explanation of how our value systems get corrupted, I highly recommend one of T. Nguyen's lectures that was recorded on YouTube. It's 40 minutes long. I ripped so much of this video directly from it because, again, originality doesn't exist, but I would feel like a horrible person if I did not direct you all to the source material, the genius that I plugged into to talk with you all today. It's very yummy brain juice to sip on, and it's so good that it made me want to go back to school to get a degree in philosophy. So many examples came to mind when I first learned about value capture. Initially, my mind first jumped to how we measure relevance on YouTube, which is a topic that Tiffany Ferguson has extensively covered on her channel, and I highly recommend you watch those videos as a continuation of this discussion. But YouTube is a place with very clear metrics for success. Some of them are made public for you to see, some of them are private just to torture creators' inner monologues. Most of the time, if I were to ask you who the most successful creators on the platform are, you're gonna name the most subscribed to channels, the channels that have hit 10 million, the creators that have the highest net worth, maybe who's growing the fastest right now. But that doesn't mean that as a creator, I should be ranking my own success in those terms. In fact, tying my worth as a creator to my view counts, to the waxing and waning of my subscribers, to my engagement rates, to the amount I make in AdSense or through sponsorships, stringing my dignity along with those things has only caused ruin. It's never given me reward. And any times it has given me a fleeting moment of pride or ego boost to see a video get swept away by the algorithm, it's such a fleeting feeling. Internally on the YouTube platform, on the creator side of things, the Creator Studio is repeatedly reminding you of how your videos are performing against their metrics, their watch time stat that they provide to you. How many of your subscribers decide to click on the video, whether it's seen on the homepage or not. YouTube has very carefully selected things for creators to pay attention to that will make YouTube more profit. It's not with the creator's interest in mind, and I hope that isn't too radical to say that obviously the metrics that YouTube is providing to us to track ourselves, to rank ourselves, to align ourselves with, they're all metrics that are going to keep audiences on the platform, keep people watching ads, keep people watching the multiple ads per video. And of course, the more and more you feed into those metrics, the more you're gonna earn on your channel. And if you're a creator that's depending on your YouTube income for your livelihood, you have to care about those metrics. It's what is paying your rent. For me, I've never earned enough on YouTube to even consider making it my full-time. And I really resonate with people that have communicated how much more liberated they feel as a creator, as a creative, when they're not guided by seemingly arbitrary metrics, but rather by their own interest in just saying what they want to say. The pipeline from bright-eyed creator making videos because they love it to jaded, neurotic, anxiety-ridden YouTuber is so strong. If you don't watch yourself, you could easily trip and fall into a very dark spot where suddenly you're swept up in a current of just caring and comparing and devaluing yourself because of these metrics that may or may not align to the content you actually want to create. In fact, like some of my favorite videos are not in my top 10 on my channel. Actually, the videos that are in my top 5, like I can point to a few of them that I'm not particularly proud of, but for one reason or another, YouTube liked them. They're profitable, the algorithm favored them, they were entertaining, not sure. But there are videos I have on my channel that got a 10 out of 10 in the Creator Studio that I love and cherish and I'm extremely proud of. And if someone asked me what my favorite video I've ever created is, it wouldn't be YouTube's favorite video I've ever created. Does that make sense? Like, those are two separate things for me, and the more that I can release myself from YouTube's value capture, the happier I am. Just because a way to measure our success is as clear and as simple as views or likes doesn't mean it's good. Sometimes a more abstract, mushy, fuzzy goal is healthier. Second example, which explains why a lot of us become very disillusioned after completing 22 years of schooling in our lives, comes from Engines of Anxiety by Wendy Nelson Espeland and Michael Sauter. It basically explains that before the US News and World Report hit the scene, imagine a time where the US News and World Report of academic rankings did not exist. Mind-boggling to be sure. In any case, there was a time where that did not exist, and students were going to school without that. Before it entered the law school scene, a lot of schools could have a lot of different goals for themselves as an academic institution. You'd have these like very nuanced contextual missions of law schools. One could be to create top corporate lawyers, another could be to create lawyers that are very connected to their community and have good morals. But when that godforsaken US News and World Report hit that goddamn scene, all it cared about was LSAT scores and GPA of entering students and the legal employment rates of students when they leave. So then law schools either had to conform to that system of rankings and values, or they would lose students because they would be left off the report or ranked very lowly. You come into law school interested in learning and you leave caring about GPAs and rankings, which in my book is not a very bright future for academia. Maybe you don't give a shit about likes and follows on social media, good for you. Maybe you don't give a shit about rankings in academia, great, applaud you, seriously, I wish I didn't. And I'm trying to decolonize that from my mind. But the third example you might relate to, if you think about video games, which is what C.T. Nguyen's book is all about. I very openly will admit that I am not a gamer. I've never been very attached to games, never found much like gratification or pleasure in them really. That being said, I do very much understand why and how people do find so much enjoyment in gaming. I acknowledge I'm in the minority here. However, it is not fair to say that I've like never responded to any games, because I have. And when I think about the games that I was very obsessed with, it's games like Sims or Zoo Tycoon. And to take this example of value capture home, these are games where the goals, the values you're supposed to chase aren't explicitly laid out. So like in Sims, some people enter in and their goal is to grow their character's wealth, upgrade their standard of living. Some people just want to motherload up front and then have fun designing and interior decorating their house. Others may just want to drown their Sims relentlessly in as many creative ways as possible, or have as many fucked up interactions with other Sims as digitally possible. It's fun to create your own goals and change them over time as you see fit, as opposed to getting stuck in success being level 10 or success being your characters having 2 kids in a beautiful mansion. I just don't get attached very well to defeating the final boss, because that scoring system is creating the player's motivations in a game. And behind the scenes, a game designer is creating the goals of the in-game itself. So while I've very keenly subscribed to academic rankings and social media engagement, video games is one arena where I've been able to detach myself a little bit from value capture and find environments where I can determine my own aspirations, so to speak. Not to say that Sims is a very intellectually elite game. So this past year, we've had a chance to like step away from environments we've been previously immersed in, whether that was in-person school or your office or your social environment, maybe your family. Like, we've all had some distance to reconsider our relationships to those value systems and those metrics of success. The question we're left to grapple with then is, how do you detangle what you want from what those systems tell you you should want? It's super unclear. It makes it very hard. Our value systems have literally been manipulated to be easy for us to understand, rather than going through the very arduous process of defining these things for ourselves. And I can't tell you what to structure your ambitions around. Like, I can't do that for you. I can only speak to like what's been really harmful for me to attach myself to. Certainly my productivity levels, whether I have plans Friday night or not, how clear my skin is, my salary, how much I've accomplished compared to the Forbes 30 under 30 list, what people on the internet think of me, exercise, how my jeans fit. I'm a little tired of it. I'm a little tired of all that. Aren't we a little tired of this? Like, those aren't even very creative, fun, cool things to care about. I'd much rather attach my success to more, again, like nuanced things that are harder to measure, because maybe we shouldn't be measuring everything all the time. Things like creative fulfillment. I feel really good when I'm creatively fulfilled. Richness in friendships, like volunteering my labor in my community, taking care of my health, rest, learning, all of those things genuinely provide for me when I seek to accomplish them. But you really can't pick anything. It's so freeing to just hit the reset button on what you need to be, do, become in order to like feel accomplished. Now that I've said all of that, then again, do we always need to be seeking growth, seeking success? Can we simply just exist? and be happy to be in community, do things we like, etc. I am 1/10 of the piano player that I was in high school, but I probably love it even more now. I really never got good at pottery when I was taking ceramics classes, but can't I just enjoy things from the process of it instead of always attributing quality to satisfaction? I've just spent a lot of time in this video talking about dismantling success in the abstract, remeasuring it, but maybe if I want to send this video off a ledge, we can just abolish success and kill the cop in our head that's always chasing better, 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 more. That might be a little much for a lot of you. My mind goes back and forth all the time. Because of course, accomplishment gives us dopamine. That is like biologically the way our brains work. You can't deny that. Like after I finish an embroidery project I've been working on for 5 hours, I feel very good. Completing things is fun. I just also acknowledge that more, bigger, better, faster, that is all very capitalistic knowledge. And to be honest, it's what got us into this climate catastrophe in the first place. So I also like to take time to note when I am kind of being sucked into a tube where I cannot just be happy with the present, but really need to push for more verticality in my graph, if you will. Because even if it's good measures of success, it can still drain you if you do not let yourself just be happy with what you have done to date instead of all that's left for you to succeed at. There is such a thing as degrowth, which is a concept that I was introduced to through Alice Capel in one of her wonderful thought-provoking videos. Degrowth is an economic term. It's questioning and challenging the notion that GDP and economic growth is king, and trying to separate the automatic association of growth with improvement, the idea that progress is not always a net positive. Just because an industry is getting more advanced does not mean that it's actually helping society. In the same way that me sucking at piano forever is not a problem, even if the world wants to make you feel guilty for being bad at it. Because I'm good enough at piano for my own standards. Like, I don't need to chart my abilities against an index of every piano player who has ever existed to feel gratified in this creative pursuit. The way I see it, we have 3 options. Number 1, we can just adopt the value systems laid out before us. Number 2, we can reject value capture and reconceptualize our own ambitions outside of the traditional metrics. Or number 3, we can abolish needing to be successful whatsoever and just vibe. Completely up to you, of course. Thank you for joining me in this little existential thought bubble. Now I've got to go catch a flight where hopefully I'll have some actual dreams because I'm very sleep deprived and need the rest. Whatever you've got going on after this video, if you could leave me a like and potentially hit the red subscribe button to turn it gray, that would be wonderful if you got anything out of this video at all. Otherwise, take care of yourselves. I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching, and Katherout.